He's not wrong.
Oh, he's
on
wrong.
The purchasing. He's not. Of the 4 million vehicles purchased, 269,000 electric vehicles were sold in the U.S. market. It's up like 2%.
Every single year, more Americans buy EVs than the year.
Well,
this is really important.
More quickly?
Every single year, more Americans buy EVs than the year prior. There are two things that I think are needed for that to happen even more quickly. One is the price, which is why the Inflation Reduction Act acted to cut the price of an electric vehicle. The second is making sure we have the charging network we need across America. But I want to talk about the bigger point here. And I take this very personally because I grew up in the industrial Midwest, literally in the shadow of broken down factories from car companies that did not survive into the turn of the century because they didn't keep up with the times.
And many of those auto workers are concerned that electric vehicles require fewer humans to manufacture.
The most important thing is that the EV revolution will happen with or without us, and we've got to make sure that it's American-led. And that's what the president is focused on. We don't want China. Look, under the Trump administration, they allowed China to build an advantage in the EV industry. But under President Biden's leadership, we're making sure that the EV revolution will be a made-in-America EV revolution that is critically important.
Because of these tariffs we're talking about that President Biden says he's going to roll out.
Also just making sure we invest in America's capacity, making sure that we are onshoring or friend-shoring the materials and the processing of what goes into these EVs, making sure that America masters these processes. Because, look, there's no way that we're going to get to the middle of this century with the technology that we counted on a century ago. Now, there are obviously a lot of voices here in Washington who are interested in keeping the status quo.
He says it's going to be one of the first things he does.
Would be happy to see Americans trapped with dirty and expensive fuels. But the reality, and I know he's made a lot of promises to the oil and gas CEOs about some of the favors that he believes
but it obviously is resonating for him because he wouldn't bring it up so frequently if there wasn't some anxiety that he's tapping into. And let me ask you about a portion of this that I think does fall under your portfolio, and that's the charging stations you mentioned. The Federal Highway Administration says only 7 or 8 charging stations have been produced with a $7.5 billion investment that taxpayers made back in 2021. Why isn't that happening more quickly? So
the president's goal is to have 500,000 chargers up by the end of this decade. Now, in order to do a charger, it's more than just plunking a small device into the ground. There's utility work, and this is also really a new category of federal investment. But we've been working with each of the 50 states. Every one of them is getting formula dollars to do this work, engaging them in the first handful. Again, by 2030, 500,000 chargers. And the very first handful of chargers are now already being physically built. But again, that's the absolute very, very beginning stages of the construction to come. The reason that we're investing federal dollars is to fill in some of the gaps in areas where it is not yet profitable for the private sector to do it. Now, again, the majority of charging will happen at home. And in some senses, an electric vehicle has more in common. Fueling it has more in common with charging your phone than it does with filling up a gas car in ways that are both helpful and challenging. But that is exactly the transition that America is going through right now. And the other thing, again, is the price, right? We have seen the cost of EVs fall to now where it's within a few percent of an equivalent gas car. Depending on the model, you may come out ahead now.
Secretary Buttigieg, thank you for your insights today.
Thank you.